This video is all about analysing what makes a nation fantastic at football. The World Cup left us asking some big questions, so we thought we would go out and search for the answers. We wondered why the teams that win, win, and why the teams that lose, lose. France made it to a second World Cup final in a row. That means they have now played in 4 of the last 7 World Cup finals, which is quite an astonishing record, especially when you consider that before 1998 there were 15 World Cup tournaments played and France's best ever finish was 3rd place. There has to be a reason or two behind that radical change in success for French football. So we thought we would explore why this happened, amongst other things. Why Argentina won the World Cup, despite not being the best team on paper, and why countries like the US, with huge budgets and populations, still aren't troubling the traditional football elite. So what makes a nation good at football after all? We have decided that 5 factors have a major impact on whether a nation competes at a high level in international football or not. They are football culture and tradition, financial resources, poverty, domestic football infrastructure, and immigration. We are not suggesting that these are the only 5 factors that affect things, but these 5 are crucial, and the correct mix of all 5 can create a national team fit to be world champions. You may also think that financial resources and poverty are just 2 different ends of the same stick, but the reason we had to separate these 2 reasons is super interesting. If a country has great financial resources within the Football Association, but the country itself also has a level of poverty, then you have a really powerful mix for creating great football players. Brazil is a perfect example of this. Of course, we aren't glamorizing poverty in any way, shape or form, but the reality is that lots of elite players come from very poor backgrounds, and poor backgrounds can create hunger, a hunger in young footballers that those with access to better education may never have. For many in impoverished areas with little or poor education, football is seen as their option to prosper in life. In a more developed zone or country, education may be prioritised instead. If these young desperate footballers then shine and are brought into the Football Association, they can receive proper coaching and facilities. They are the ones who tend to become the best players in the world. An ironic idea, but one that we will come to explain in more detail. Anyway, let's start by chatting more about football culture and tradition. Despite the fact that 22 World Cups have now been played, we have still only had 8 different World Cup champions, and nations like Brazil have won 5 titles. Italy and Germany have won 4 each. So 3 nations alone have won significantly over half of all World Cups. This dominance suggests that certain countries may have some advantages, and we believe one of those can be a deep football culture. A deep footballing culture translates as a general interest in the sport, and in some countries football is simply a lot more popular than it is in others. And in a handful of countries in particular, football means everything to a high percentage of the population. This is football culture, and this means certain nations may go through bad spells, but they will always be back one day battling for top prizes. Take Italy and Germany at the moment. Even with their high standards, if they have the odd generation that isn't competing for titles, more generations will come, and more titles will be won. Because the children of these nations will never stop playing football, and the club giants these countries have will never stop producing top players. It's only a matter of time before they are in another final. History would tell us so. A strong football culture can also help to build a sense of national pride and support for the team, perhaps a winning mentality, and it certainly has the ability to inspire future generations of players. Through the passion and enthusiasm of the fans in certain countries, you can tell it means more to them, and therefore you can tell a higher percentage of the children in that country wake up thinking about being the next football star, going out and playing on the streets. This footballing culture creates a cycle of success. At least once in every generation, a nation will have inspiring players, a great team, or a big success. And this may well be enough to inspire the next generation to rise and copy their heroes. It may push parents to push their children, or push governments to invest more in youth football. There are many ways that football culture can maintain a great national team, tangible or not. Even if a traditional football nation doesn't have the best team, they will always have a couple of amazing players, so they will always be there or thereabouts on the world stage. Countries with a strong football tradition, such as Brazil and Argentina, have had success in the past, which has helped to create a culture of winning and a sense of pride in the national team. Argentina and Brazil are good examples of how football being popular can also put immense pressure on the players. But when you listen to Messi or Neymar talk about what inspired them to play football, they will always mention the likes of Pelé and Maradona, football heroes of their country's past. This is the essence of football culture. And this is proof it is a massive advantage that is very hard for a nation to lose. It clearly attracts young players to the sport that in another country might have had other interests. In Argentina and Brazil, football is a culture and a way of life. The two South American nations cannot compete with Europe financially, but they always compete with them on the pitch. This is, in part, because in Argentina and Brazil, football touches everyone. A country like the US or China may have a bigger population and be financially stronger, but they do not have a football tradition that can match that of an Argentina or Brazil. This shows the power of football heritage. Financial resources and infrastructure obviously play a crucial role in the development and success of a national team. As with any sport, adequate funding can be used to hone top talent. England's St George's Park is a great example of a state-of-the-art home for all age groups of the national team. Here, from a young age, their men and women's teams can use the best facilities and state-of-the-art resources to improve, and also create a strong team culture as they grow into senior players. Poor countries obviously will not be able to give their players such help through the youth ranks. More funding can be used to provide more resources in the detailed areas that give professional teams a critical edge, like sports scientists and analytics, which helps to optimise the performance of any professional team. A funny example of this is the Republic of Ireland World Cup team of 2002. When they arrived at their World Cup training camp in Japan, the pitch was too hard to play on, and there was no training equipment available. Sure, they had some great players in what was a special generation with the likes of Roy and Robbie Keane as well as Damien Duff. But clearly, in terms of finance and organisation, they were lacking. A wealthier organisation that is better organised would not have made such an error. This may be a trivial example and a bit of a one-off, but that is the point. Financial resources and the wider organisation is so important to a national football team on every level, and you can't see England or Germany forgetting to bring footballs to a World Cup, can you? In a broader sense, the financial resources of the nation mean more clubs and more cities will have better football facilities and coaching systems. This provides a suitable environment for players to develop and improve their skills. Football is more attractive, safe and fun with better infrastructure, and more money can pay for better coaches to improve young players. Countries may have better scouting and better systems for young players to develop. And on a more simple level, a wealthier country means more children will be able to pay to play football within a recognised system. Families of young people will be able to provide more for them with good pitches and equipment like football boots. In many countries, this would still be considered a luxury and coaches would never be paid. So therefore, the wealthier countries will have the best coaches on the best football pitches, and perhaps better systems to find the best young talents. Poverty can mean that players cannot be developed or discovered, and it may mean they will never be able to play football because they have awful living circumstances or have to work long hours. But it must also be said that in many instances, poverty and low-income circumstances can be the pressure that produces the finest of diamonds. What do we mean by that? Tune into part 2 to find out.